Next person, we have, if I get this right, oh, I do apologise, I should have said hello to everybody at home who's watching or in your offices. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you only just joined us before, I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in the different areas that you were. That was done earlier this morning, but I should have done it in case you've joined us. I'm from Bundjalung Nation land, and of course we've been in flood, and it's been absolutely horrific. I hope and pray that the land heals quickly, and I hope and pray the people do as well. But we acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands and all people with lived experience too, and people who care about people with lived experience, and I assume that's every single one of you here today and at home or in your offices, so thank you. So the next person is Carolynne White. Carolynne is a registered occupational therapist and an adjunct research fellow at Swinburne University of Technology. In her current role as participation engagement advisor at Mind Australia Limited, Carolynne is working to embed a culture of inclusion and participation across the organisation by engaging diverse consumers, family members and carers in activities that influence decision making. So that's really wonderful, Carolynne, and I wish you well in this presentation.
Excellent. Hi everybody, I've got a bit of a rough throat, so that's from a past COVID infection. So if I cough, that's what's going on. So thank you very much for having me today. I'll just wait for the slides to come up. So I've had a promotion since the last time I wrote my bio. So I'm the now Participation and Co-Design Manager at Mind Australia. And today I'll be presenting some work that I've been doing with Elise Watley.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay. Who's our Practice Development Advisor at Mind Australia. So Elise had been working to support Equally Well for a number of years, and when I started at Mind in early 2020, we kind of binded together and got Mind to sign up to the Equally Well consensus statement, which is a really exciting thing. I'll click. There you go. It's amazing. So today we'll be talking about kind of reviewing physical health guidelines through a mental health lens. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the country that we're on. So we acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, who are the traditional custodians of the lands on which we work, and pay our respects to elders past and present. So I'm a visitor from Wurundjeri country down in Victoria, and I recognise the Ugambe people. So Ugambe. I've only ever seen it written before, so I'm learning how to pronounce that. We recognise the intergenerational impact of the history of invasion, dispossession and colonisation, and are committed to the recognition, respect, inclusion and wellbeing of Australia's First Peoples, and recognise their wisdom and their strength that's enabled them to survive for over 60,000 years. Mind also values the experience and contributions of people from all cultures, genders, sexualities, bodies, abilities, spiritualities, ages and backgrounds. We're committed to inclusion for all our clients, families and carers, employees and volunteers. So to tell you a little bit about Mind, Mind is a community managed mental health organisation that operates in 4 states across Australia. So we support people experiencing mental health and wellbeing concerns to find help, hope and purpose in their lives. We provide a range of individualised evidence-based and recovery-focused support to more than 11,000 Australians every year. We're committed to lived experience approaches of mental ill health and a culture of continuous improvement in practice. And I suppose one example of that continuous improvement is I'm employed in a designated lived experience role as someone who has experience caring and supporting family members with mental ill health. And recently we've been doing some work with Dr. Louise Byrne, learning about the difference between peer approaches and being a professional with lived experience. So that's something that I'm continually improving and building my understanding. So we strive for meaningful participation with clients, carers and families to co-design processes and challenge biases. And one of the big projects that Mind has been working on over the last few years is the development of our My Better Life model. So this is a model that was developed through extensive involvement with carers, consumers and other supporters. And it's a model with 12 areas that people can choose to talk about and set some goals around to support their recovery. So physical health is one of the areas of My Better Life that people can choose to have a conversation about and set some goals for their life. So before I kind of talk about kind of what we've been doing around physical health at Mind, I just wanted to highlight some of the problem. And we've heard today about the rates of people with severe mental illness dying 20 years earlier than the general population. And some of the things that came up through these conversations that we were having with our clients and carers and family members was an increased recognition of eating disorders. So people with eating disorder have 5 times the risk of early death than the general population. And Chris's comment about cancer, so people with severe mental illness are no more likely to get cancer than the general population, but are much more likely to die from cancer because of barriers to seeking early treatment and screening as well. So from a Mind perspective, we've been doing some routine kind of outcome measures with our clients. And so these are some of the findings from clients who access our housing and support programs. So using the WHO Qual Brief, which is a brief measure of quality of life, we found that residents in our supported independent living services had much poorer quality of life related to their physical health than both the Australian population and Australians living with psychosis in the study that David Castle mentioned earlier. We also see increased rates of people dying prematurely because of physical health conditions that are related to their mental health. So in 2020, or the end of 2019 and early 2020, Dr. Sarah Pollock from Mind Australia and Katie Larson, who's our General Manager of Inclusion and Participation, were on the steering committee of the Our Turn to Speak survey. So this was an Australia-wide survey that was looking at people's experiences of stigma and discrimination. So the survey found that in the past 12 months, 83% of the participants who'd completed the survey had experienced some form of stigma and discrimination in healthcare. 60% of participants also anticipated future stigma when they were kind of accessing health services, and many had withdrawn from healthcare opportunities because of the stigma and discrimination that they'd faced. So participants also reported unfair treatment when trying to get help and unfair treatment by physical health care professionals, where their needs weren't taken seriously or their mental health issues inappropriately became the focus of their treatment. So that diagnostic overshadowing that we're all too familiar with. So in this kind of context, we wanted to kind of review the physical health guidelines that Mind was using. So this was our kind of original kind of form that was developed in 2014 and then revised in 2018. And then in 2020, we wanted to revise the tool to make sure that it was consistent with the My Better Life model that we were introducing. So for a long time, I've been concerned that simply adopting physical health guidelines that were developed for the general population may not necessarily meet the needs of people who experience mental ill health and distress. So in a recent peer practitioner community of practice, we showed 3 advertisements that were developed for the general population to our peer practitioners and asked them to view those through a mental health lens. And the feedback that we got was really interesting. So one of the ads was about sugar, one was about quitting smoking, and the other one was about physical activity. So one peer practitioner said, advertisements reflect society's attitudes that generate stigma and are ignorant to mental health's existence. Another person was concerned that the ads highlight the gaps between the haves and the have-nots. One person said, a very black and white approach to just stop rather than supporting or understanding was a problem. Another person talked about kind of the shame that's associated with quitting smoking. And another person said when they were watching the This Girl Can advertisement, that had they been watching that when they were unwell, that would have made them feel worse about their situation and distanced them from other people who were able to participate in physical activities when they couldn't. So we need to think about how we might do things differently. So co-design is a really complex kind of way of designing things with people, for people. So because we already had a tool, we kind of couldn't say that we were starting from scratch. So we used this model by Tomic and colleagues, design, think, make, break, repeat. So we started off with the break component of co-design. So we had something that was kind of working okay-ish in practice. We'd had some feedback from the community mental health practitioners about how it could be improved. And we decided to start this co-design project to make it even better, and so that it was fit for purpose and also contemporary, and also matched the scope of practice of Mind's staff as well. So we started with that kind of breaking, taking what we had, pulling it apart, seeing what worked, what didn't, in order to improve it. So some of the mindsets that we brought to this co-design task were about true collaboration, so working together with the lived experience advisory team at Mind and working with the community mental health practitioners, and working together to kind of resolve this complex challenge. So one of the key questions that guided this co-design project was, how might we support clients' physical health using a recovery-oriented and trauma-informed lens? So in the lenses, we've got recovery-oriented practice on the left-hand side, which is taken from Mind's recovery-oriented practice guideline. And then on the right, we've got the 5 blue knot principles for trauma-informed care. And we've kind of colour-coded them to show that there are some distinct overlaps in terms of those different principles. Trust is a really key one in there. Great. So this was the process that we went through for co-designing the My Physical Health Toolkit. So as I mentioned, we started off kind of with that review of the physical health guidelines and checklist, and we did a practice audit of what was currently happening within our step up, step down or prevention and recovery care services to get an idea about what supports were currently available and potential areas for improvement. Then we did a workshop with members of our lived experience advisory team who had expressed an interest around improving how we do physical health. And in that workshop, we asked the questions about how might we kind of review physical health through those different lenses. And we asked them questions about how not to start a conversation about physical health in order to identify things that we could do better. Then we took the findings from that workshop to our community mental health practitioners and did a survey and a workshop with them. And then we reviewed the practice guidelines and the broader literature to see how we might incorporate those into our practice. Then we took that back to the lived experience advisory team through a survey of what we'd kind of developed out of those first 2 workshops to get their feedback, and then we refined some of the tools that we were going to be developing. And then finally, we took it back to the community mental health practitioners to kind of say, okay, this is how we're going to do things. How can we put that into a format that supports your practice and your work with clients and fits in with the existing tools? Through that kind of process, I mentioned before that eating disorders had come up as an issue that we hadn't really thought about much before, but was mentioned by both consumers and also community mental health practitioners. So we took the tools that we'd developed and we got some input from a dietitian who works in mental health services and Eating Disorders Victoria as well, just to make sure that we were helping people without causing additional harm. So through the co-design process, we heard lots of things. So here's a few that kind of informed our principles about how to have supportive conversations about physical health. So we heard people want to be treated as whole individuals. So we need to provide person-centred and non-judgmental support. We heard that it's hard to have 8 hours sleep if you don't have a safe and secure place to sleep. And getting enough food is important, but if you can't buy it, you can't eat it. So we need to recognise people's context. We heard you might not want to call an ambulance because of bad experiences with hospital, so you put off getting treatment for important health issues like an asthma attack. So we need to be trauma informed. And we also heard that community mental health practitioners should not start a conversation with, "So I've noticed you've put on a bit of weight lately." Another person said counting calories can send people with eating disorders down a wrong path again. So we need to tread really carefully and take a weight-inclusive approach. So that was what we heard from the first workshops. And then we kind of did some further work. So these were taken from the second 2 workshops. So we had the lived experience advisory team kind of rank the areas of physical health from most comfortable to least comfortable to organise how we were going to set up this conversation tool. And we asked them for question prompts as well. So, rather than asking, do you eat 5 vegetables and 2 fruits each day? Like, what could we be asking instead that was going to be more suitable? Then we had a staff workshop, and so where we collated all of the information that we had kind of worked on with our lived experience advisory team, and to see kind of what their ideas were to how we could make it better. So during COVID, we got really great at using online tools. So these are a couple of examples from our Miro boards that we worked on with the lived experience advisory team and the staff as well. So this is the practice guideline that we developed. So the format or the template looks very similar to what it was before, but the content is very different. So in this recovery practice guideline, we have some information about how to approach a conversation about physical health, how to start the conversation, what can get in the way of a supportive conversation, some tips around how to link it in with people's My Better Life plans, and then we also included next steps. So what can we do to support clients with their physical health? And how do we know that our support is making a difference? So how we're going to evaluate what we're doing. So this is a couple of snapshots from the conversation tool. So on the first page, we've got all of the different areas that the tool focuses on. And so the community mental health practitioner can kind of show the picture to the client and say, are there any areas here that you'd like to talk about today? What's most concerning you? And the person can prioritise what they want to talk about. And then when they've chosen what areas they want to talk about, then it goes on to the next page, which has the conversation prompts. And one of the things that came up from the staff was that they wanted more space to write because our previous form was just a tick box, and they couldn't kind of add the contextual information that was really important. So we included lots of space for people to write. Then at the end of the conversation, people can have an opportunity to set a goal. So people can set a goal around the specific area that they've talked about, or they might want to focus on something that's kind of related. So with the sleep example, so someone might want to kind of focus on some strategies around how to get better sleep, or the person might want to focus on getting supportive and stable housing. And then through getting supportive and stable housing, then their sleep may improve. So people can negotiate kind of what's most important to them and set priorities. Then on the right-hand side there, we've got our ideas to explore when setting a goal. So through the conversations that we had with the consumers and also with the carers and family members and staff, we came up with a list of over 50 things that 50 ways that community mental health practitioners can support their clients. And this was seen as really valuable by the community mental health practitioners in explaining what they do to other providers, particularly in clinical services. So we also have some physical health resources that are on the Mind's intranet page that link to best practice guidelines, but also some examples of great practice. So I've got the picture of someone cooking there. So through this project, we heard some incredible stories about what was happening in practice. So there was a service in Mackay in Queensland that had formed a partnership with their local CWA, and they were kind of supporting clients to go to the CWA to learn how to prepare food and to cook, which was a really valuable partnership. So we're at the stage now where we're rolling out the toolkit in practice, and so we've been doing lots of different things within the service. So we've prepared some resources for service managers and team leaders to introduce the My Physical Health tool to staff. We've provided tailored presentations to Mind's communities of practice, so our peer practitioners, young people, complex disability, and we're planning to run some webinars to support the launch in 2022. We're also going to measure our progress using data from the My Better Life plans and encourage quality improvement activities to share examples. So this is some of the feedback that we've got so far, and I'll use this to kind of leave you with it. So some of our service managers have said this is an amazing tool and great resources. I think it gives a lot more substance to conversation around physical health than the old tick box physical health checklist. Another person said, I think it will be really valuable for the participants of our program. And recently in our peer practitioner community of practice, we heard that peer practitioners, after kind of hearing about this new tool, they would stop avoiding having conversations about physical health and leaving it so long to review physical health goals and conversations, that they would start looking for opportunities to have these conversations earlier, and that they would continue to be open and hold space for those that would like to discuss their physical health and have conversations with a caring, compassionate and authentic approach. So thank you very much for listening today, and I'd like to thank all of these people that contributed to the work. Thank you.